Good evening or good middle of the night. I'm a little under the weather for 7 days now, and I lost like 5 or 6 kilos. It's like had to Google it. Why use my own brain when I have Google? So that's like 13 pounds that I lost in the last 7 days. Therefore I have to switch to aspirin instead of Tulsi tea, and I want to talk about this book and about spirituality and how it relates to addiction. So this book is from Gabor Mate, and he's maybe one of, in my opinion, he's an authority on addiction. He's a psychiatrist from Canada, and he wrote this book, and it's called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. And as I said before, I went through many of the world's religion until this thing happened where I met Jesus, and but I think that if you are a Christian and you are completely dismissive of other religions, I think that's not wise. I think that we should at least learn about them, and we should have an understanding about them. And for example, the book is called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, and the Hungry Ghosts is a story from Buddhism or maybe Shintoism, I'm not sure. I think it's Buddhism. So, and the story goes that there are these hungry ghosts, and they can possess people, and they take that very seriously. And I watched a Buddhist monk talk about it, and he said he went for a walk. He was walking and he saw a young woman, and he had the feeling that she is not human, and he approached her, and he found out that she is a hungry ghost. And they have this belief that the hungry ghosts, they have huge bellies but tiny little mouths. They can never be filled, but they try and try and try, but they can never be satisfied. And they usually have huge bellies and very tiny necks and very tiny mouths. And this is a perfect description for addiction, because many people think that, well, addicts just want to take drugs that gives them a kick or something like that, but that's not really true. That's true to a certain extent, but not if you're chemically dependent on that stuff. Then you take that just so that you feel kind of normal. You don't really feel good anymore. You just have to do that to somehow get through the day, fall into bed and repeat. So and you have to have it. You don't. There's no no way that you have to go to work and don't have your medications. No way. And like I said, withdrawal symptoms can be lethal. And but I haven't read it completely through yet, but it's very interesting for me that he as a psychiatrist, a secular atheist and psychiatrist, used this title in the realm of hungry ghosts, because it's a perfect description of addicts. They can never get enough. They have huge problems with trusting people. So, for example, if the Buddhist monk who approached the girl and he sensed that she was not human, that something is completely off, and he taught her a very simple meditation, and he said that many of these people come from traumatic backgrounds, family backgrounds, and there's also, you could say that narcissistic personality disorder would also fit that description perfectly, because these people, they need what's called narcissistic supply. They need someone to victimize. They need it, like a drug. They need that. They need to dress someone down, like waitresses in a restaurant, and say my beer is too cold or too warm, or it took too long, and you shouldn't even be working as a waitress. That's an embarrassment, and I want to speak to the manager, and until they begin to cry, basically. So they need that narcissistic supply, and they need it daily, like an addict. And I'm sure you know people like that, or many people know people like that. So that's a post-traumatic condition, and most addicts could be diagnosed with PTSD, in my opinion, and in the opinion of my psychologist. It's pretty obvious that most people who go to that length to escape their own emotions are in a post-traumatic state, and basically they are frozen in time. And that's also with codependency, narcissism, maybe borderline personality disorder. So, but I'm just speaking about what I gathered in the last 15 years. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist. I just have the drive to survive, so to say, and I stopped watching TV 10 years ago or so, maybe even longer. I mean TV in the sense of for entertainment purposes. I don't do that. I read books, I try to figure out a way out of addiction. So that's my life's purpose for the last 17 years. Now I'm 35. So I heard a lot of stuff, let's put it that way. So, and what the Buddhist monks taught her was a very simple meditation, but just like I said before, it's often the case that the things that are the most simple are also the most powerful. So he taught her mindfulness, and she was victimized by her father, and he taught her to visualize herself as a 5-year-old girl standing before her, breathing in, breathing out, and smiling at her with compassion. And after 2 weeks, she did that for 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks, he taught her to visualize her father when he was a 5-year-old boy, and smiling at him with compassion. And by doing that, she learned that we're all made of the same material, and if you are victimized enough and suffering enough, you are not capable of giving love anymore. And or at least you're not capable of giving love in a way, in an appropriate way. And most people who are very high on the narcissism spectrum are people who were basically in a constant schizophrenic state when they were young, and when the neuroplasticity was very high, before the age of 6, for example. And they had parents that either ignored them or punished them excessively. And when you're in such at home and in the outside world, they were very successful, like Sam Vaknin. I think he has an IQ of 186 or 183, and he went to university. So he was a medical student with 15 or so, and he was there when they used to cut up corpses and so on, which also must have had some impact on him as a 14-year-old. So he was worshipped as a Wunderkind, a child prodigy. And this schizophrenic state, where at home he is less than, and in the outside world he is like, he gets a city named after him and so on. And this created a massive split in his personality, which then usually goes 2 ways, either into the megalomaniacal side, where you become basically God, where you project a false self of God, or you become a people pleaser. You cannot say no. You try to resolve, like even as a child you try to vermitteln, see to that your parents don't start to fight, so you like play the clown to lighten the mood, and you become very sensitive to the emotions of other people, so okay, if you don't do anything now, then in a few seconds he's going to explode. So that's the way you become a people pleaser. And the other way is what Sam Vaknin went. But both of these conditions are post-traumatic conditions, and these people are frozen in time. And I would say most addicts are like that. And most addicts look very young. Like if he's 45, you would say he looks like he's, I don't know, 28. And I remember, I'm 35, and I remember I had to show my driver's license to buy cigarettes a few years ago. So obviously I do too look very young. But well, so this phenomenon has always been with humanity. It has many names: BPD, NPD, MPD, codependency, and so on. So there's like the diagnostic manual is like you could kill an elephant with it. So and all the drugs that they prescribe for all these conditions just make it worse, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what you should do. I'm just trying to figure out my life. But in my opinion, it has never helped me to take synthetic drugs that are completely foreign to this complicated body mechanism. Going to a psychiatrist, in my opinion, in my case, has never really helped me in any way, shape or form. Never. So I just don't do it anymore. I just know one who is a nice guy, who I sometimes visit, and he usually says things like, I would really like to help you, but because you bring so much knowledge to me, and I would really like to give something back to you, but I can't. And that's in, when we're out of the office or something, when he talks honestly, they can't help. What can they do in reality except listen? But if you do that long enough, you are filled with so much emotional baggage that you just get numb. And my aunt is a psychologist, and she's now she's done this now for several decades, and she does not look good. So let's put it that way. She lost like, I don't know, she lost like all of her body mass. She's like really skinny now, and yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. So that's just the thing that I always used to say, that if I go to a psychologist and they ask me these stupid questions like, how do you feel on a scale from 1 to 10 every time? Why shouldn't I go to the next bar, buy a few beers and talk to the barkeeper? Has the same effect, maybe even more. So, costs less. That's just my opinion. So The Hungry Ghost, it's pretty interesting that he used that title, because as far as I know, he is an atheist. So he does not believe in God. He even, I think, debated someone about that, and I think he's an atheist. I'm not 100% sure, but as far as I know, he's very much into the mythology of the Bible and so, but he does not believe in God or something. So he's a scientist, he's a psychiatrist, and he's a world-renowned psychiatrist in that addiction field. And basically, as far as what I have read, it's very discouraging. If you are an addict, you really have a problem. You really have a problem. It's not like it's on television, you go to rehab like the guy from Jackass, Steve-O, and you're healthy again. It's not like that. You can't, that's not how it works. So basically my conclusion was that I have to basically brainwash myself, and I was very much into all this MK Ultra stuff, so I thought I could find out some techniques to brainwash myself away from addiction. That was my goal. And the moment I found out about meditation, I did that like an insane person. So like I meditated at least 1.5 hours a day for like 3 years, with maybe a handful of days where I had no time to do it, but I used to do it even on the holidays and so, and at least 45 minutes twice a day. Plus I did mindfulness, and mindfulness was very helpful, and it's there are different forms of mindfulness meditation, but it's very easy to learn and it's very powerful. Just to have this transcendental moment just for 5 minutes a day. Even when you're working, you can do it, nobody will notice. To see yourself from above, don't judge yourself, just look at yourself and see what is good and what is not so good, and do that every day, and you will get a completely different perspective than when you're just looking outside your eyes, and usually you're like more than depressed and waiting for death, basically. So that was my life for nearly 20 years, waiting for, I don't know, they never said what's the plan. They just said go into substitution, and in a few weeks or months you'll be we will wean you off and then you're healthy again. But the intention behind it really was crime reduction. So they put as many people into these programs as possible, and none of them ever get off. It took me nearly 20 years to find one person who made it. And the first time I was in rehab, I asked a guy, I didn't know anything. I was like, I don't know where are the toilets, where do I have to go? And I talked to him, and I asked him, bist du, Entschuldigung, German, is this your first time also? And he looked at me, no. And I asked him, have you been here before? And he said, yeah, it's my 7th time. And that was my first day in rehab. And when I found out that this is not something extraordinary, that someone was there 7 times and never made it, I got a little discouraged. So, and then I couldn't take it seriously anymore, because I saw, and later then I found out about the international statistics. Nobody, people like go and in and out of rehab for their whole lives, and some of them even die because they don't have any tolerance. when they get back out on the street, they still have their old circle of friends, and within like 24 hours they have an overdose. This has happened also to a friend of mine. So now I think 4 friends of mine are dead by now, from not being able to get away. And it's like the Bible says, that the devil lays snares, and you step into the snare and you're a goner. And to get out of that snare, you have to rebuild your whole mind, your whole spirit. You have to build a new temple. You have to destroy the old temple. And I'm very much for Christ and for Christianity, but I've also learned a lot about other religions, and like calling them heathens and saying they will all go to hell for eternity and so on. That's a little harsh, because I mean, just for example, one of the things that was very interesting for me was Judaism, because it's so complex and so esoteric and so I mean, they don't have 10 commandments, they have 632 commandments, the mitzvahs, and it makes a lot of sense. And one of the rabbis that I listened to once, he had a lecture, and the lecture was for Christian seminaries, and that was the graduating class, so that these were not children or something. So, and he held his lecture there, and after he finished, one of the students immediately put up her hand, and she said, "What do you think about Christians?" And the rabbi said, "Well, it has been a good life. Now I know how the Holocaust started." And then he said, "When I hear the word Christian, it scares me. Because Christians haven't always been very good to Jews." And the next question was, and you know that these people, they study the Torah like 14 hours a day when they're young, when they're learning in Hebrew school. So they don't have like one Bible, they have like a whole book stand full of Tanachs and Torahs and so on, and the Bible is basically snippets out of the Tanakh, the Old Testament. Deuteronomy, for example, is a part of the Tanakh, but it's very much more in depth what they learn. So I don't think that Christians should be dismissive of Jews, because it's a wonderful religion. So And one thing the students then asked is, what do you think about hell? To the Rebbe. And he said, yeah, hell exists, we believe in hell, and that you burn in hell, but we see that like that when you die and you are in your soul body, you are much more sensitive to emotions, for example. So what does it mean to burn? When do you burn? You burn when you're ashamed. You burn with shame and with embarrassment. So when a Jew dies and he did a lot of ungodly things, then he's going to burn for a while with shame. But the maximum amount of time would be 12 months. And the belief of eternal hellfire is idolatry. It constitutes idolatry because that would mean that evil is just as strong as God, or even more powerful. Eternal hellfire is idolatry in Judaism. And the belief, and then the next question was, do you believe in Satan? And he said, yes, of course. Satan is an angel, but he gets to do the dirty work, basically. So he's a created being. He has no will of his own. And to say that Satan can fight against God is Greek mythology. You're not allowed to believe that. It's idolatry. Because it makes Satan comparable to God. And so they were all completely flustered by his answers. So, I mean, I think that Christianity is a wonderful religion, but Judaism is also a wonderful religion. And there's a lot of wisdom in Buddhism, Hinduism, and so on. And to assume that our religion is the only one that's true, everybody else is going to burn in hell forever, that's not my thinking. That's not really what I believe. And religion is basically, religion for me means tradition, and tradition has nothing to do with a spiritual relationship to a higher power. So there's a difference between religion and the gospel. The true gospel means you have a relationship with Jesus Christ in whichever way or form, and that's it. Everything else is tradition. And even Roman Catholicism is not really Christianity, for many reasons. Because, for example, there is no Mary worship in Christianity, in the Bible. There's no worship of the Mother Mary in the Bible. that's tradition. And it has been, as far as I know, implemented by Kaiser Constantine because of the prevalence of heathen beliefs in Rome at that time. They always had a male god and a female goddess. So basically the Mother Mary represented for the heathens, when Christianity was made into state religion, their former female deity. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. And I know I said a lot of things about meditation being dangerous, but I think I should be more specific about what I mean by that. I don't mean that you should never ever try meditation because it's demonic or something. And like this pastor just said, now when we are now in these more and more hungry, ghostly, narcissistic times, and you are in prayer, for example, and there come these ungodly thoughts, just ignore them. And the more of these demons that trouble you like flies in your mind, the more concentrate on prayer and God, and they will just go away. And don't get too much into this fear of Satan thing, because that's exactly what keeps you there. And even the Bible says that fear is not from God. So don't make the same mistake that I did and get into, like, I was a freak for conspiracy theory and all this stuff, but it holds you. It holds you in a constant mindset of fear, and that's not godly. So don't get involved in conspiracy theory thinking, because it doesn't lead anywhere. It doesn't do anyone any good. Even if you know every conspiracy theory from every angle, it might make you into the next Alex Jones, but it's arguable if that's a good thing. And just focus on things that every day. What's very powerful, for example, would be, like I said, mindfulness. Just 5 minutes of sitting or going outside at work alone, sitting down, closing your eyes and seeing yourself from above, seeing where you are, when you are, how you feel, and just make a note of that. And do this every day, and it will massively help you to get a new perspective. And also very small things, like, for example, you could just take a piece of paper, and every day you get up 10 minutes earlier and you sit down at your desk and you write on that piece of paper, intention equals healing, and under that you write, what will I do today that gives me a little bit more energy, more healing, more self-esteem, anything. Not binge watching Netflix, not binge watching YouTube videos, going for a walk. Anything can be uplifting, and especially now in these times with this virus, we should focus on not going completely insane and making a little step in the right direction every day, even if it's just making your bed every day, will bring you to the stars eventually. And also, don't take things too seriously. Don't have a little humor, even if it's bad. And you are more powerful than you think, even if everybody told you that you're not. You're much more powerful than you think. And you can change the world if you set your mind to it and make baby steps in the right direction. Suddenly you are at the Holy Tabernacle, so to speak. Thank you for listening.